Warhammer 40k Fluff for the uninitiated.
Ha! The Imperium is a big place, my boy. The universe is always unleashing some new catastrophe, some marauding race. Hundreds of worlds die, but millions more prosper. It matters not. Nothing can truly hurt us here.
The story of the Necrons starts at the beginning of the universe itself. Shortly after space-time came into being, matter and energy began to accrete and form stars, planets, gas clouds, and all the other wonders of space we take for granted. Around the same time, the primordial soup of the burgeoning universe spat out intelligence for the first time. Although yet nameless, these immense beings would later be named Catan, meaning star gods or star vampires. They would wrap themselves around stars and feed off their energy, too vast and too satiated by these nuclear furnaces to pay the dead matter around them any attention, even when they learned to arrange themselves into wings that would carry them to new stars. For the longest time, the Catan were content just consuming the energies of stars and floating through the void. Millions of years later, the first intelligent races of flesh would emerge, the very first being now known as the Old Ones. They were so long-lived as to be effectively mortal, and so advanced in their understanding of the universe and their technology that they could traverse galaxies in a single step through their webways, where they would settle their own kind or raise up other forms of life. One other race that rose up in the galaxy about 13 million years before the first humanoid ancestor developed on planet Terra was that of the Necrontyr. Despite stemming from a planet that was inherently hostile to life, they managed to evolve their society to the point of being able to reach out into space, but not with the simple elegance of the Old Ones' webway portals, but with stasis crypts made of living metal that would slowly trudge to their destinations through real space. Still, not knowing any better, the Necrontyr still considered themselves pretty hot shit. Until they first encountered the Old Ones. They envied them their longevity and technology, but the Old Ones wouldn't share. So obviously, this being Warhammer 40k, war ensued. By all accounts, the Necrontyr, used to fighting tooth and nail for survival, gave the Old Ones a pretty good show, but eventually it became clear that they had no real chance of winning this fight. Looking for an edge, the Necrontyr checked out their home system star more closely and discovered a Catan attached to it. Through means not clearly recorded by history, the Catan agreed to inhabit the machine bodies of living metal provided by the Necrontyr and use them to join the war against the Old Ones. Turns out the Catan thought consuming lives and being worshipped was preferable to lazily sucking on star energy. In fact, they thought these new metal bodies were so cool, the Necrontyr should try it as well. Which they did, turning their race into the essentially immortal, but also essentially soulless Necrons, completely enslaved to the Catan. The Old Ones kind of panicked at this a little bit and started making new races left, right and center to help them fight this new menace. These included the Elder, the Jokero, and even the predecessors of what would become known as Orcs. The Catan are very weak against warp energy, so much so that they at one point tried to completely separate the two dimensions. But the young races with all their chaotic emotions stirred up the warp so much that it gave birth to the very first demons, which didn't help any of the warring factions at all. As to what happened to the Necrons, accounts vary, which is to say the entire Necron history is canon conflict palooza, but especially so after this point. Some say the Necron rose up against their masters and shattered the Catan into shards that contain their essence and can be used as living weapons. Some others say the Catan and Necron went into hibernation for a couple millennia. Either way, the Old Ones were defeated, the young races were free to evolve, and the Necron will be back when you least expect it. For instance, to team up with the Blood Angels in a fight against Tyranids and then part ways as the best of friends, according to Matt Ward.
Death stands above me, whispering low. I know not what in my ear. Of this strange language all I know. There is only pain and fear.
In combat, the Necron are some of the most fearsome foes one might encounter this side of actual demons. They do not communicate verbally, do not even breathe or feel pain, and thus fight in near-perfect silence. Their bodies, called necrodermis, are made of living metal which can be reshaped at will to personalize the inhabitant's look or to spontaneously sprout a bladed weapon with a fractal edge that can cut through any material, for instance. Or to repair any damage it sustained. and should the necrodermis be damaged too severely to contain the soul it hosts, it will explode, releasing the soul so it may be reborn in a new body at a convenient Necron tomb world. It might at this point have become apparent that the Necron are something of a fearsome opponent. But to really drive that point home, please consider that even the most basic Necron infantry unit carries Gauss weaponry that solves its target at a molecular level and thus stands a chance against tanks or dreadnoughts. And if that fails, the Necron race can also make any star in the galaxy go supernova in an instant through what is called the Celestial Orrery, although they very rarely make use of this power because they are all too aware of how it upsets the natural equilibrium of the universe, and whenever they do it, it takes millennia to carefully balance everything out again. But still, they have that option, as well as various other weapons with colorful names such as Doomsday Cannons, Nightmare Fields, or Empathic Obliterators. While the Tyranids will tear your body to shreds in a frenzy of teeth and claws, do not be fooled into thinking that they are the true horror beyond the stars. Reserve the judgment for when you have seen a wave of nearly unstoppable black metal creatures advancing towards you in total silence just because all the other ways they have of obliterating you would be excessive. If all the Necron dynasties were to unite under a common banner again, things would no doubt become very interesting very quickly.
Lucky creatures, at long last you have found the tranquility of death. I was like you once, clinging to life and blind to the truth. When I uncovered the truth, I too shuddered and paled with fear. Deep in these catacombs I was remade. Here my brethren slumbered for eons, while the living grew like weed. My Lord knew this day would come. He had plans for us all. He would purge this world once more. So come, poor victims of life. We will grant you tranquility in these crypts. Cronus will be a tomb world once more.